we are about at 3:30 here on the East Coast. Thank you for accommodating the last minute change, or the late change, I should say, from today's meeting from 3 to 3:30. Much appreciated. So we'll get this kicked off. Had an interesting question come in regarding, um, hey, all of this talk about mission and vision and values is great, but I'm either new in my business or this specific person was having difficulty gaining new clients in the down market. So, is there anything tactically or practical that comes to mind that I can do? And I saw this post from Alex Hermosi this week, and I thought it was pretty apropos and kind of fit what we're talking about. Yes, that all this stuff is very important. It's the foundation of your business, but in parallel, it's equally important to make money. So that's getting clients, reaching out, continuing with lead generation and things like that. So to have clients coming in the door while you're building this foundation, doing the two things at once. And what I thought back to was the ability to generate new business from new sources. If you are new in the business, or even if you're looking for new ways. And I have a notebook full of these kind of tactics. And I'm going to go through two of my favorite for somebody who's brand new, somebody who's looking to break into a new geographic market, a new niche, a new core client, somebody who's interested in a different price point, things like that. Before I do that, just want to remind you, if you have questions, please submit them through either the chat or the Q&A function. We will answer them live. I took some notes on some of this, so I'll kind of go over those here. The first of the immediate tactics you can put into place, this one's fairly common. People know it as the drive for dollars method. The idea is you see a new neighborhood and you inquire on properties that are interesting. So one of the core challenges we've discussed is finding the high quality leads in a competitive market. So down, up, competitive is kind of what we're looking at here. So for agents, investors, wholesalers, is how can we consistently find off-market properties that are ideal for investment, resale, or ideally a listing we're talking about. So that's where this drive for dollars makes sense. It gives you the opportunity to have a real conversation with property owners, people maybe renting a property, people who are representing a property because you have come across it and you were physically there. So you can say, hey, the grass looked long. You had a dumpster in the driveway. Your neighbor's house is for sale. Or I noticed that 3 of the 4 houses in this cul-de-sac have recently renovated. Is this something that you're thinking about? So you're having a somewhat non-threatening conversation about something that's happening in real time. So when we're talking about all the mission, the vision, the value stuff, yes, but you still are looking to drive new business. And this is one way to have conversations. While it may not lead to a direct listing, those conversations might lead to introductions and so forth. And many times, asking the right questions in that conversation when talking about other properties on the market, looking up the mortgages that are on the property in between the registry information. There are apps that have this information. If it's something that you think will be useful to this conversation, which generally it can help. And this method works because you're targeting a specific geography. You're looking at properties that stick out, either maybe on the high end, maybe they're like neglected. You're just starting conversations. Ideally, what you want is to have conversations about real estate. Where this can fall apart is if your first line is, hey, are you interested in selling your property? They might be, but they probably will shut you down and that conversation goes nowhere. If you find something of interest to discuss with them while you are doing that drive, that conversation is more likely to be fruitful. So, in summary, drive for dollars, it's low cost, highly targeted. It's a way to have conversation with off-market properties. There are fast people search. I will include that in the recap of this webinar, and I'll put it in the post. It's a great way to get phone numbers. It's free and it's fairly accurate. So The idea here is you are creating conversations about real estate. That's what Drive for Dollars is. The other is using listings to generate real estate leads. And I call it sell your listing in 5 steps. And I just want to share this here because this was something I've used in the past. And again, I am a fan because I think that it works and it works well. All right, so here are the 5 steps. And invariably, whenever I go over this with a new client or somebody who's newer in the business, the first thing that they're going to say to me, because we say, well, the first thing you need is a listing. And they say, well, if I had listings, I really wouldn't need to go back to the drawing board uh, to have these lead generation methods take place. So I get that. So the listing is, if it's yours, that's great. And if it's not yours, or if you can borrow or utilize a listing, that's fine too. The idea here is to, again, generate conversations with people who are interested in real estate and that you've got an anchor or something in real time that has happened to generate those conversations other than, are you interested in buying or selling property? So if it's the listing is yours, it makes it a little bit easier. If there's a teammate, a mentor, somebody in your brokerage, somebody in your office, also okay. Worst case scenario is the property is listed on your MLS that you are a part of. You want to have permission to use it because what you're doing is you're promoting that listing. What you're doing is basically circling that property, and you are outreaching to everybody who falls in that circle, whether it's a neighborhood, a zip code, a city, a town, whatever you decide, you draw the circle. If it's a distance, and what you're doing there is you are spotlighting that this property is on the market and that you have made a commitment, a promise, if it's your listing, to the seller, if it's not your listing, to the listing agent, that you would not rest until you found a buyer for this property. That's step 3, that promise. What you're doing in step 2 is you are promoting that property with that promise in mind. So you're posting on social, you are perhaps you're running ads, you're doing open house if it's your brokerage. I've talked with others, and I don't know how fruitful this is, so we can discuss it. To be the designated broker for buyers coming in who are unrepresented, I think that poses some difficulty in the moment to have that conversation with somebody who's walking to an open house cold. But that is a possibility. The big thing is you're using a real listing to start a conversation with others. So the conversation is, hey, neighbor, you probably know that 123 Main Street is on the market. Mark is listing that property. I told Mark I would not rest until I found a buyer for that listing. So what you're doing is you are prospecting for possible buyers for that property. That is what you're doing. That is your promise. That is what you're fulfilling. But again, like Drive for Dollars, you're having a conversation with people about a real listing, a real situation that might be for their neighborhood. They might have a friend, a family who's interested, or they may not know. It says, "Oh, I had no idea that property was for sale. Do you know why it's on the market? Can you tell me if they ended up doing that renovation they talked about?" So you are starting real conversations about real estate, and you want to have kind of a game plan or a to Z about how you want that conversation to go. Keeping in mind your promise is that you're looking ultimately for a buyer. Do they know someone who's interested? Are they interested? Are they interested in selling their home because their neighbor's home is on the market? Can I come back and follow up with you in 2 months? Oh, you have a vacation property that you're interested in. I know somebody that I can make a referral to. That conversation go a lot of ways. So do not look at it necessarily as, oh, they don't want to list their property. They don't want to go see this property. I should never talk to them again. The idea of both of these tactics, and that's what they are, things you can do today, are to start real life conversations about real estate in the moment. This isn't some hypothetical. I have my license. Are you interested in buying property from me? I have my license. Are you interested in selling? So after that promise, you're speaking with everyone. You follow up. If you have an open house, if you have run an ad, if you do something kind of giveaway on social, follow up with everybody. Hey, we had our open house this weekend. We had 41 people show up. We had 3 offers come in. So thank you very much. If you sent anyone, the person that you referred, they were a great person to meet. This property didn't work, so we're looking for other properties. So use this conversation as a starting point, put them in your CRM. I've got plenty of blueprints for 30, 60, 90-day contact cycles. We can go over those. But the idea for Drive for Dollars and this sell your listing in 5 steps is that you can have real conversations that will drive new core clients to your business today. And you can do that while you are focusing on building your mission, talking about your vision, having your values with your team. You don't need to do one or the other. And, going back to Alex's post, the idea of being in a business is to make money. So don't ignore that while you make the most perfect vision statement, taking 6 months to do so, and then realizing, well, it came out great, but I have to I have to find a way to pay my own mortgage this month. So again, if you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A. I think 2 others come in this week. I put some notes down. So let's see. What are some ways to create a sense of belonging within a team? So sense of belonging, that tied very closely to team culture. So that belonging essential for a productive and a happy team. So having everybody on that same page is important, both for the reason they're showing up to work and the core clientele that you're working with. So making them feel included, making them feel valued, thinking of uh, your depth chart or the chart of your team backwards, or the people who are showing property, the people, your listing agents, even if you're the broker, think of them as the top of your employee flow chart, that you want to listen to the feedback because they are closest to the clients. They're the ones speaking to clients every day. So treating them like they are at the top of that employee depth chart. So hosting regular team check-ins is a great way to do this, even if it's 10 to 15 minutes every day, beginning and the end of the day, hearing their feedback, hearing what would make their day easier, things that they're hearing from the clients, and putting it into your business. This does 2 things. One, if you're the managing broker who's not going on those appointments, it gives you real-time feedback of what's happening in the market right now. And 2, your team is going to be that much more invested because they're going to say, hey, Joanne listened to me today. She cares what happens every day. Someone screamed at me because of the script that we went over, or the outreach plan, or I was doing the Drive for Dollars and I called someone and they told me never to call again. How can we make that different next time? Now, you're giving them the ownership in what they're doing, and you're taking a real interest in the feedback that they are getting from the leads they're talking to, the contacts, the clients, and so forth. So continuously nurturing the sense of belonging is important. So this is not a one-time and then forget about it. This is thinking about your team and the culture of your team. So having that direct line of feedback from anybody who might be in direct contact with clients is important. Same with your admin staff. The example that I like to think about is when we get to organizational alignment in upcoming weeks, are you capturing the same information over and over, or is there a share of information with your clients? So think about it when if you're applying for a mortgage, it's, what is the address of the property? What is your social security number? What is the purchase price? That information should be something that carries over once it's obtained one time. In your offer, that information is there. It's certainly in the purchase and sale agreement. So it should carry. If you're asking the buyer every time for that, they have no confidence in you that, one, you know what you're doing. 2, there's a smooth flow of communication between the professionals. And you, as the real estate professional, you're the one who's guiding this communication. So that just looks bad on you. So going back again to the managing broker, is there alignment between everybody who's involved? That includes the admin staff. If you have a transaction coordinator, it might not be somebody that you employ directly, but they might have direct contact with your client. Make sure that the messaging from you, from your agents, from any of the admin staff, from the marketing staff, is all on point, aligned. And it cuts a lot of that fat where you're not asking the same questions over and over. That builds confidence, and it's more efficient. And ultimately, it's effective. And those clients are going to want to do business with you again and introduce you to others. So these questions come. I met with an agent who um, was thinking about joining this group, but she said to me directly, "Do you have any leads for me? Because that's really what I'm looking for." So we talked a little bit further just about how the down market is really difficult. So the one thing I want to stress from today's conversation is that while we are talking about in the daily email about what is your mission, why do you do what you do, how do you communicate it, how are you checking in to make sure that's actually what you're delivering? Is that what your core clients actually want? You do need to be making transaction. So if there is a way for you to engage those current clients, past clients, uh, with your who's in your CRM, you should have a strategic outreach communication plan with those that you hope to do business with, those that you want to do business with again, and so forth. But they should be running in tandem. That both of them should be part of your day, and the mission stuff ties directly with your culture of your team, even if it's just you. It's, do I show up on time to my appointments? If I have a commitment to make 100 phone calls today, is it something that I am going to do? At 9 o'clock from 11 o'clock is my block that I made to make these phone calls. Well, nobody's going to know if I don't do it. You need to keep the time blocks, the commitments to follow through. And that reminds me of the last thing that I want to talk about today. And let me see if there's any questions. I don't see any yet. Um, was the idea of inputs, outputs, and outcomes. Those are things that it's important to track, and it's important to know what they mean, not to confuse them, and to understand that they each have value, but not to replace one for the other. So inputs, that is the using the 9 to 11 block of making outbound phone calls. That's a 2 hours. I'm going to input my 2 hours of time, my energy, my money if I'm hiring somebody to make those phone calls. That's what's going into that effort. Is that I hope to get a lead, I hope to sign a listing, uh, I hope to have a client to call my own after making these phone calls, or I hope to have some piece of business. That's the input, is what's the time. The output is going to be what happened during that window. So during the 2 hours, I committed to making 80 phone calls. I made 105 phone calls. Uh, so my output is 105 phone calls, and a lot of times people stop there. I worked for 2 hours. I made 105 phone calls. I did exactly what I wanted to do, and actually, I made 25 more than I was supposed to. So today was a successful afternoon. What was it? What were the outcome of those calls? Out of the 105 dials I made, only four people picked up, and out of the four, all four of them told me never to call again. So the outcome is actually back to zero. That I might have left 101 messages. I'm going to wait and hear back from them. But the four people that I had a conversation with, there is very little, if not no hope of business coming from that. So the input is important. My 2 hours, my time, my 2 hours are taken from something else. If I've hired someone to make those phone calls, it has a real cost to me. The output, the 105 phone calls, but the outcome is ultimately where we want to score this when we look at what our return on our time was that I connected with four people and all four of them were not interested. So what does that tell me? The outcome tells you two things. One, perhaps that time of day you made those phone calls was not ideal. Perhaps the group that you decided to outreach to should be um, should be emailed, or there should be a different type of communication. You want to test those things out, and you also want to say, if I had four out of 4 to 4 people tell me that they're not interested. Well, that's not a very large sample size. Maybe I want to do an A/B with my script. And what that means, I'm going to have two scripts that I'm going to use in the same audience, and I want to test which one of them leads to a more fruitful conversation. So you don't want to come across, if you're talking to someone on the phone, your energy is low, and they clearly know, hi, my name is, and that you're reading from a paper. But having an outline, having a script is incredibly valuable when you are going through these conversations, because it's very easy to get knocked off, and you want to, you want the conversation to come to a point where it's fruitful. But if you don't have a roadmap, a script, or a blueprint, it can be tough sledding, and it can be tough to remember what you hope to accomplish, because in the heat of the moment there isn't really a lot of time to think, say, well, I wish I'd said that, or I wish I thought of that. If you have a set of questions that you're hoping to have answered, or a hierarchy of things that you want to inquire about, it really helps those conversations come to a point and say, well, I spent 10 minutes on the phone, and while they're not going to list their property with me, they did agree to a follow-up call in 2 months, or we're having coffee next week to explore this, or they're going to introduce me to their son, who is a general contractor who works with potential property sellers. So there's many different ways the conversation go. Having a rough outline, a roadmap, a script is important, and you need to know what makes sense for your personality. Again, these are things I have plenty of samples of. So if you're thinking, yeah, that's great, all of my scripts stink, do you have any examples? Yes, I do. So reach out to me. I'm happy to share those, happy to go over what might work for your personality type, what might work for your type of core clients. But just to land back where we started here, input, what are you willing to put in as far as time, money, energy, and understanding what that, if you have a finite amount of all three of those things. So if you're putting that into something, what are you taking it away from? It's not, you don't have the ability to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Some of us try, but you're going to burn out very quickly. So you want to make sure that your input, the time that you are inputting into these activities, is useful. And the way to gauge that is A, by the outputs, what comes out after the time. So if you sit there for 2 hours and don't have great output, maybe that 2 hours could be better dedicated to other things. But ultimately, the outcome. What is the outcome of the 2 hours? If you were looking to sign 3 new clients, or looking to schedule 3 new appointments, or if you were looking to have 3 people sign up for your newsletter, were you able to do that? So keeping in mind, there are the 3 different aspects there that plug in, and then not commingling or confusing that. Just because you showed up for 2 hours, the other one that I kind of like to highlight here is that I was working the desk today at my office from 7 to 10 p.m. So for 3 hours, I was there ready to answer anybody's question. Anybody called, anybody came in. Oh, great. Well, who called? Nobody called, nobody came in. So it's 3 hours of time. Your input was wasted for the outcome there. Was there anything else that could have been done next time before you sign up for those 3 hours again on a Wednesday night? Is there a better use of that time if your outcome is to ideally get in front of buyers and sellers? So I'll just check one last time. If anybody has questions, please submit them through the chat or the Q&A. Just to go over the things that we've hit on today. Yes, having your perfectly crafted, and I'm going to share the screen again. Having the perfectly crafted mission is very important for your team. Making sure that your team is on the same page, very important. But you should not be doing that without the idea that, oh, I also run a business, and my job is to get people in the door. My job is to get to the closing table and sell property. If most of us here are real estate professionals, that's the goal. So I need to do both things. That I cannot just ignore that there are people who need to, people on my team who need to make money. I need to make money. This is a business. I'm not doing this for fun. So making sure you're doing both those things. And then with the input versus output, what am I spending my time on? What is the output of the time? And then what is the overall outcome? Really having the distinction between output and outcome. Last thing we talked about today in summary is having a culture of buy-in from your team, making sure that the organization that you're part of, whether it's a team, whether it's your brokerage, whether you have admin, marketing staff, that there is a flow of information in and out, that it is aligned, that there is one message that is being conveyed to your core clients, to the people that you hope to work with, and that it is not confusing. And that's something that's always going to change, and there's always going to be ways to make that better. So keep testing that, keep getting keep getting that message out there and listen for feedback. See what works, see what doesn't work, and keeping in mind that a large enough sample is what you want to target before you start making changes. It's not just I talked to two people, they're not listing their house with me, so I need to completely change everything from when I call, who I call, what I say. Test things and have a reasonable sample. Seeing no more questions, I am going to wrap it here. Thank you, everyone, for who is here live. Last call, raised hands. Any questions through the chat? I'm not seeing any. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's call. Thank you for joining us, and we will be posting this video with some clips, with some resources, and we will be getting the roundtable calls. I've had a couple questions about that as well back on the calendar. Those calls are not recorded, and we can all see each other, which is sure beats me talking to a camera. And we can kind of just go over best practices and answer questions in real time. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for watching this live and or on demand. And I'll see you all soon. Take care.